So today we're using a Zoom format and not a webinar like we did the last time. So we're going to ask you all to mute so that we can let the panelists have their presentation here. And if you have questions, ask you to use the chat feature, and I'll be monitoring that throughout the course of the next hour and bringing in questions as I can that relate to what the panelists are talking about. Welcome everybody to Aparo's second virtual CIO Insights, this one on driving business momentum, the CIO's role. And of course, given what's going on around us every day right now, this of course will also be related to COVID-19 and how the business momentum is changing and adapting, and how the role is changing and adapting daily in the midst of all of this. We have a wonderful group of panelists with us today, and a wonderful sponsor, Accenture, who will be having our moderator for the event, Melissa Cronin, and I'll introduce her in just a minute. I wanted to start by thanking our series sponsor, NTT, and offer them a moment to say a word. Brent Moore, I think you're with us tonight, and if you would say a couple of words.
That's right. Thank you, Kim. Good evening, all. Brent Moore, I think most of you know my face, or we've met at some point at Aparo events or in the IT community in general. I thank you guys for letting me speak tonight. I wanted to just say a couple of things about how excited NTT is to be a part of this series and to be sponsoring this, to bring this opportunity to bear for CIOs to share their thoughts and bring thought leadership to the community. I think it's fantastic. I will tell you, this is my first year on the sponsorship committee for Aparo, so super excited about that. I look forward to, hopefully getting back to normalcy where we can start to meet in person again. I know this virtual stuff is quite different for most. I mean, we've become accustomed to it as of late, but there's still nothing like the personal touch and being able to meet in person. And if there's anything I can do to help anyone that's a part of Aparo, certainly feel free to reach out. I would love to talk to anybody else about what I'm doing to try to drive sponsorships for Aparo, and the passion that I have for getting more companies involved in Aparo and helping spread the good news that they bring to the nonprofit community and what they're doing to help to continue to connect the broader IT community. So with that, I'll kick it back over to you, Kim. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem at all. I'm going to pause us 1 second because one of our panelists is having a problem getting on. Karis?
Yeah.
Can you get the right link to Seemantini Godbole, please?
Sure.
And Steve Salazar. And then I can keep going here. Sorry for making you all pause for a moment here. Technical difficulties. All right. So thank you very much, Brent, for your sponsorship and for your excitement about working with Aparo. We're glad to have you here. I also wanted to take a moment to do a little 5-second announcement about some things coming up on Aparo's calendar. We have an award coming up, and it's actually 2 awards, and that is the Tech Exec and the Tech Entrepreneurial Community Impact Awards. We've expanded our awards. Last year we had a Tech Exec, and the reason we have the Tech Exec Award is because we wanted to find a way to give the community an opportunity to nominate people who are CIOs and not CIOs, and specifically around their work in the community and philanthropy in the community, using their technology skills, using their technology teams, engaging their company in lots of ways in lifting our community. And so this is our award. We did it at our breakfast last year, which is in October. This year, it is like our breakfast will not be in October. It will be in January, but we are still doing our awards right now, gathering the information for them, but they'll be announced in January. And the 2 awards are for a tech exec. So anybody who has not started their own company, is not an entrepreneur, who's in a company that exists right now, it could be anyway. It does not have to be a CIO, but it could be a CIO. And then the tech entrepreneur is anybody who started their own company, who is in one of the wonderful startup companies here in the Charlotte area, who has been doing great things with their tech team and their tech knowledge in the community. So please think about nominating. The deadline is coming up August 11th. And I wonder if this will work. Can you hear this? You probably can't. So I'm just gonna, that never works. The video inside a Zoom meeting. And so this is, if you want to take a shot at this URL, this will get you to that application. So I'll leave it here for just a second. And while it's behind us, I'm going to turn it over to our wonderful facilitator, Melissa, who I've mentioned before is with Accenture, who is sponsoring this particular forum. And we're grateful for you to be here, Melissa, and I'll allow you to introduce our great panelists.
Great. Thank you, Kim. And thank you to you. Been a wonderful partner with our firm, so appreciate you letting us be a part of this CIO Insights Forum. It's funny because I think you and I had this planning session to talk about this particular forum back in March, and then fast forward, obviously we've had to change the structure quite a bit, but nice to meet everybody here. Melissa Cronin, as Kim mentioned, I am with Accenture. I support our South region financial services technology business. So most of my work is in support of a financial services company across our South region, helping them kind of implement technology solutions to drive their business. I'm really excited about the panelists that we have today. And what I'd like to do, if it's okay, Kim, is turn it over to them to each give a brief introduction before we jump into the content. So why don't we just kind of go down the list, and Tony, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Melissa. Hi there, I'm Tony Alfano. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for NTT Americas. And I'd also like to echo Brent's thanks for allowing us to sponsor this forum. I have responsibilities for IT and a number of other functions in the business, and we'll be speaking to what we're doing at NTT Limited and our story as it relates to IT transformation on the call. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tony. And Victor?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's good to be here. I like seeing so many names I recognize from being in the Charlotte area a couple of years ago. I'm currently the CIO of Fortive. Fortive is a conglomerate of 20-something operating companies, and we're driving a pretty aggressive transformation agenda and always interested in hearing and learning more from others, so glad to be a part of this conversation.
And is Seemantini in yet, Kim, do you know?
I'm working on it behind the scenes here. I don't know that she is.
Okay, so I'll pass it to Steve then.
Yeah, good evening. Good evening, everybody. Sorry, Seemantini, you in?
Yeah, I'm in.
Go ahead.
No, I was just apologizing. I had trouble getting in, but I'm in now.
It is not your problem. It was our technical issue. So thank you for being here.
We'll let you settle in for a second. Everybody, hi. It's really good to be with you all this evening. I see a lot of names and faces I recognize. Really appreciate your sponsorship of Vaparo and the CIO panelist conversations that take place, the Insight series. So really appreciate that. I know a lot of you know me. I'm Steve Hagood. I am the CIO for now Trane Technologies. It was formerly Ingersoll Rand. We've gone through so much change in the past 12 months, not the least of which a lot of changes that you're all going through too with the COVID-19 quarantine and epidemic issues. But we've also spun off a large part of our company, a lot of our industrial businesses, which is where the Ingersoll Rand name was really founded, and really the brand is really world renowned in a lot of our industrial products. We spun that business off and are now focused very much on energy sustainability in the climate arena with commercial, with HVAC and air conditioning equipment and services, along with refrigerated transport units. So happy to be with everybody tonight.
Thank you, Steve. And then Seemantini, if you don't mind giving a brief introduction.
Absolutely. Hey, hi everybody. My name is Seemantini Godbole, and I'm CIO for Lowe's. You know, among all of us, I think I'm the newest member in Charlotte community, and just, you know, frankly love it. The city, you know, we are big fans of nature, and the people have been most welcoming, and we have a fantastic community here. So we love it. And, you know, Lowe's work is all around home improvement. We are embarking on a huge technology transformation. So I think the teams have been hard at work. And that's basically, you know, how is it going, and really enjoying my time at Lowe's.
Thanks, Seemantini. Okay, so let's get started then with the dialogue. You know, our topic for today is driving business momentum, the CIO's role, and I think what we can say now is, you know, driving business momentum in a global pandemic. So it'll be, you know, interesting to hear, you know, how these panelists are, you know, in their CIO seat, really trying to help their companies through this crisis. And I want to set the stage a little bit, because what we'll be talking about are a couple of trends that Accenture has in its 2020 technology vision. So kind of we'll weave those into the dialogue as well. So every year in kind of early February, Accenture publishes our annual thought leadership report. That's part of Accenture's multi-year perspective on technology's impact on the enterprise. And this year happens to mark the 20th anniversary of that report. And the report identifies key technology trends that companies should address over the coming years to lead in the future. This year's theme happens to be "We, the Post-Digital People," and the 5 key trends in that. And I think, Kim, after this, we can probably share the link to the report out with this group. But the 5 key trends are the I in experience, which really explores how companies need to get to know their customers and their employees and interact with them in a way that makes sense to the individual. It's AI and me. So reimagining the business through the human and AI collaboration. The dilemma of smart things is the third one. So as you can imagine, with all of this smart technology kind of being released into the world, you know, how do we make sure that with all the data out there, you know, how do we make sure that there's not unintended consequences of putting the smart technology out into production so quickly? Robots in the wild, which is pretty self-explanatory. How are companies kind of using robots to kind of grow their enterprise reach? And then innovation DNA is the 5th one. So, you know, how are companies creating this innovative culture that's going to help them drive business momentum? So, you know, not 5 weeks after we published the report, the global pandemic hit. And obviously that's changed people's lives at unprecedented scale and impacted every industry. We feel like COVID-19 has truly made the 2020 technology vision even more relevant than before. So businesses are now faced with, you know, urgently solving for today's needs, as well as thinking about kind of the longer term post-pandemic world, and the role of the CIO has never been more important kind of in helping to lead their organization through this crisis. So I'm really excited to hear what the panelists have to say about, you know, how they're helping their companies lead through this. So let's go ahead and kind of, the first question that I have, you know, Steve, if you don't mind, I'll throw this out to you, but, you know, now that the world is changing faster than anyone expected and businesses are working together in new ways and thinking more creatively than ever before, and in many cases kind of simply to survive, in your role as CIO, you know, how are you inspiring your team to kind of constantly innovate, and how are you ingraining kind of this innovation DNA into your technology team's culture?
Thanks, Melissa. You know, first of all, I feel like a lot of the CIOs and a lot of the tech leaders could answer this question as well, and, you know, be on this panel, you know, going through the same things that, you know, we're going through. You know, first of all, I would offer to you, you know, the role of the CIO, even in this environment, it doesn't necessarily feel like it's changing. It's just a continuation, I think, of what our businesses expect of this role, to be business leaders, to be innovative leaders, you know, to be right there at the table in the strategic sessions, understanding what the key business initiatives and priorities are. And then how do we bring technology, you know, whether it's new and innovative technology, whether it's, you know, old school technology, you know, what are the right tools and technologies to bring into the companies? I just feel like that gets accelerated. And I think we've seen an acceleration of that mentality during this time with COVID-19, and how do all of us as technology leaders help our businesses work remote, you know, on a dime, you know, from one day to the next. So I don't necessarily feel like there's new thinking or there's new role of the CIO that's trying to come into play. It's just a continuation and maybe an acceleration of the expectations our business partners have had for some time, that, you know, IT is a business leader as much as an IT leader, you know, and they're helping to drive the innovative solutions that are going to drive revenue growth or margin expansion or productivity gains and the like. How do we keep a focus around innovation during this time? Well, to be honest with you, there's kind of two things for us very quickly that are happening. One is the same thing we're all facing, the fact that we're having to pivot and adjust so quickly to changes in the way we work, how we work together. We're all facing that. And so the fact that we've had to do meetings like this in a virtual way, we've had to embrace the technologies there. You know, we've had to react to changes like that already. And then the second thing, though, for us, particularly at Trane Technologies, is, as I mentioned, we've, over the last 12 months, basically become a brand new company. You know, this is probably the closest I'll ever get to be a part of a startup company as the new Trane Technologies, as we spun off a lot of our legacy industrial products and are now focused on pure play climate control products and services for the world. In that transformation, which is still going on, by the way, for us, it's given us a natural opportunity to really revisit who we are in our company, how we want to provide services, you know, how I as an IT leader want to provide services, and position our organization with the businesses. And so your comment about, you know, how do we continue to drive innovation? Well, for us in this transformation, we've made some organizational changes that really lean into that, where we've added a formal enterprise architecture organization that didn't exist before. And we did those services and we had that thought leadership in our company, but it wasn't as a formal organization. Well, it is today. And part of their formal role and their formal goals are to absolutely understand some of the newer trends and technologies, to be able to bring those into our company and then partner with our businesses around their initiatives. So I feel like our transformation work, along with the environment we're living in together, those two things are really helping us lean into you know, being even more focused on innovation and having IT really be at the table as a business partner.
You know, if I could build on Steve's comments there about leaning in, there's this environment that's been created around uncertainty. And what I find is a lot of the business partners and executives are actually looking for guidance. You know, overnight we had questions around how do you support a mobile remote workforce? Or overnight you have questions of how do I move into a digital sales environment? And so there's a spirit of partnership and a desire from stakeholders to say, I need an answer for X. And I think the skill that I've seen that's really succeeded in fueling this notion of innovation and execution is really one of commitment and conviction. And the technology leaders, the digital leaders that are standing up with a point of view that connects how technology can be used to advance the purpose of the companies are the ones that are actually going further in bringing those solutions to market. And so I think there's a skill in here for us to all consider around, do we have the conviction? Do we have the commitment? Are we bringing solutions that are connected to the core of what the company is trying to accomplish? And I think when you get that right, you'll find the innovation engine just take off.
Thanks, Steve and Victor. Seemantini or Tony, do you have anything to add there in terms of, the innovation in kind of your companies and what you guys have seen over particularly the last 3 months?
Seemantini, I think you're on mute.
Okay, sorry about that. These are truly unprecedented times is how I feel. I mean, I have not seen anything like this in my career. And what I mean by that is for companies to have so little control of their surroundings. And if we look at the crisis before this, whether it is, you go back to 9/11 or you go back to, the financial meltdown in the 2008 and for a couple of years there, I think those crises were massive, but there's something about this crisis where you have very little control and very little visibility to what's going to happen over, even next 12 months. And I mean, a lot has changed. And I think, probably what I'm going to say resonates with a lot of you. We were all used to using remote technology. Steve, you're very right. I mean, I don't think we would have had this meeting in this format if we were in normal times and we would have all been in one location. But our board meetings are happening remotely for last 2 times now, which is truly unprecedented. We, that's taking to a whole different level, is to talking some of these complex discussions in a remote fashion. All our people are working from home. Retail, for a retailer, it does introduce significant challenges as we are an essential retailer, and we absolutely are committed to keeping our customers' homes working. That's really our goal. But having stores open, our associates out there in the community, making sure our associates feel safe, our customers feel safe, that's a complex set of challenges that business leaders are handling today. I think what we did as Lowe's is we looked at the situation and we said we have 2 choices as to, from a technology transformation perspective, we could pause or go slower because there's just too much going on. Lots of new priorities got added. Contactless, doing contactless retail became extremely important. So there are lots of different priorities being added. But I think what we thought was that, hey, there are a lot of things on our priority which were good for us. COVID, no COVID, they were just good for us. That's why they were on our priority list to begin with. That's why they were on our roadmap. And we just thought the best way to work through this crisis is to just absolutely double down and, just accelerate the heck out of this transformation. And that's exactly what we have done. We have actually pulled in a lot of stuff from second half of 2020 into the first half of 2020. There are some things which were on our roadmap in 2021. We have pulled that all across. For example, we just announced last week that in our app, if you download our app and put in your Lowe's credit card, you'll be able to do a contactless payment at our stores. So we truly wanted that omni-channel experience. It was much later in the year. We just said, this is what our customers want. And we accelerated that in its life. So there are lots of things that we are doing which are going much faster. And I feel like the road Marvin has taken is this is the time to truly show leadership, demonstrate leadership in community, and technology is no exception. And that's the path we are following.
From the NTT side, it's an interesting, I'm kind of glad that I got a chance to go last from the colleagues. I can say that I have a bit of the inverse than Stephen's example from Trane. NTT Limited is now essentially a 1-year-old company. We just essentially brought together 28 separate businesses that were owned by NTT Holdings out of Japan into one, integration and managed service provider. That was no easy feat. And why I think that's important is because, as Victor was saying, what we've done is, in order to spur this innovation DNA, is first we had to develop a structure. From an IT point of view, you can imagine all of the integration and all the different disparate systems, over 2,000 that we're now dealing with, but a structure to deal with this. And part of that structure was, where were the decisions going to be made in terms of the end result of the technology transformation blueprint we're going to go forward with, who was going to own what, and what was the edge. And I happen to be part of the company that is in a region that is part of the edge and facing our customers. What are we going to do to respond to getting to this goal? So I think about COVID and its impact on that. And Seemantini, we absolutely accelerated the roadmap. And what I found very interesting was we just were able to leverage existing resources that we had today, like Zoom. We use a different app, but it's the same principle. We strengthened a lot of our security. And then we let the individual teams across NTT work in a collaborative way. The innovation part that we dealt with, though, is really around, from an IT perspective, where could our teams that were on the edge provide maybe more business insights to our business leaders. And I found that to be the most interesting thing that we've done in terms of accelerating growth and value from the IT organization. Is our teams at the edge are now leveraging a lot of business intelligence technologies to provide feedback internally. So a little bit about us.
Yeah.
Great.
Melissa, if I could add, a couple of things have really happened. I would expect, and I bet everybody's seen both of these. Number one, it's actually kind of interesting to me that our business leaders and a lot of our executives, a lot of my executive peers, they tend to be surprised at how productive we've stayed during this remote period. Now it seems the lights are on, that we can do remote capability and we have video conference capability. And for all of you and all of us, we know that technology's been there for a long time. Now, I would grant you it's improved a lot, right? And so now today it's a much better experience. But it's a little surprising. Our executives feel a little surprised that, oh my gosh, this stuff can work. And by and large, we're as productive, and I'd almost argue we're being more productive than we ever have before. And it's really changing the game in terms of what our business partners expect and think about people physically having to come together to be productive and to get good work done. The second thing is, and I think it's been mentioned a couple times in spots, is, by necessity, we've had to go faster. We've had to accelerate. I'll give you a quick example. We were a Microsoft Skype shop, and later this year, we had anticipated starting to bring in the newer Microsoft Teams technology. But that was going to be later this year. It wasn't right now. With all of our transformation work and the separation of companies and all of that, we were really way too busy. Teams was not on our priority list. As soon as COVID hit, we pivoted, and within about a week, 2-week period, we had tested out what we were going to around Teams, and we rolled it out to 30,000 plus employees. And so we really, demonstrate, and we live, in our heart, what we know in our mind can happen, and that is we can go faster, we can move more quickly. We don't need to test till the cows come home. We don't need to paralyze ourselves trying to figure out every last situation that might occur. Almost in an agile kind of way, throw it out there, get an 80% solution, and keep iterating along the way. I think just those things have shown the innovative nature of IT already. And so there's also a willingness now in the business part to maybe listen better, to understand better what technology and what IT can do, because you've had to live with it by necessity these last 6 months.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. And it's funny you mentioned your team's transformation. So our firm, and I would call myself kind of on the business user side of of it, we transitioned over to Teams probably about 4 months prior to the pandemic hitting. And I will tell you, we were Skype users before as well. And I will tell you that we were kicking and screaming, right, throughout that transformation. And I could not imagine a world where the pandemic hit and we were not on Teams already before it hit, because the collaboration, you know, the collaborative technology that it brings to our company is phenomenal. So I was thankful to have gone through that, you know, just before the pandemic hit, and we were pretty much all off of Skype by that time. But yeah, I agree. When the technology is there and it's needed, the adoption piece comes, you know, pretty quickly, particularly when you're forced to work remotely overnight. I wanted to touch really quickly on your productivity piece, because I thought that was an interesting comment you made. What I've seen in several of our clients is obviously this agile transformation that's been happening across the industry. And there was even a push in some, you know, in some companies and industries to move people back into the workplace to work together, and because of the agile transformation. So, you know, what, and Seemantini, I see you nodding your head, so maybe I'll throw this question to you. You know, how are you, you know, adapting to now this sort of 100% remote work, and still being able to kind of adopt agile at the pace that you kind of had anticipated? So Seemantini, I'll throw that over to you.
Yeah, and you know, we truly operate in an agile product world, and I'll tell you, before the pandemic, I mean, we were used to sitting at long tables, elbow to elbow. We were big proponents of everybody in a scrum team kind of be able to see each other, very, very high collaboration. Drawing on the whiteboard was a big thing in tech. Being able to, you know, real time kind of exchange ideas and stuff like that. We used to have also, because the amount of transformation that is going on at Lowe's, there is also need of a lot of cross team collaborations. These are like about 300 people all coming together, kind of working on a product roadmap so that we just line up everything just right. And when this happened, I worried about a couple of different things. As pandemic happened and we sent people to work from home, a couple of things I worried about. First of all, I was worried about stability, because the amount of changes, even today, like we are putting about 100 changes every day into our production environment. And these are 100 really large changes. I'm not counting the minor changes. And I used to think like production stability is going to be a real problem, because if you had an outage, the only way to collaborate then is to get everybody on. We are big users of Teams as well. And I felt like we were doing some huge transformation, like putting Lowe's.com in cloud, the last leg of Lowe's.com, new delivery platforms. I mean, there is just a host of bunch of things. And I thought this was going to be production stability I was worried about. The collaborative sessions I was worried about. And I was worried that all this is going to hamper our speed after all. So we took a 1 week break, and we said we are not going to make any changes this 1 week and see how it goes. And it was also just a high volume time for us. Spring is extremely important season for home improvement. But what we noticed is that we actually need to go as fast as we can. So we ended that freeze instead of a week. We ended it in about 48, 72 hours. We started making changes. Again, our production stability hasn't suffered at all. You know, these sessions that I talked to you about, I think people are able to work through Teams very successfully. This 300 people session that I was talking to you about, we did that through Teams as well, with shared whiteboards. Frankly, it creates, you know, there is also pleasant surprises we are discovering along the way. It creates a level playing field. Everybody is equal now because everybody is remote. There is nothing like who's in what location and who's in the room and who's not in the room. Everybody is remote, and that has created some interesting possibilities. And we are able to do all that. So I think the productivity, to Steve's point, I agree, has been phenomenal. What I worry about though is what do we do to inject enthusiasm at the right times? Because I think right now there is a little bit of that American spirit that we'll do it and we'll show we can do it. We can overcome this. And there is a lot of that going on, which I love and encourage. But I feel like, is there going to be a point where people start feeling the fatigue, cabin fever sets in, and there is a little bit of like, one of the feedback I was hearing is that this is really tough for people who are living on their own. And this is not about an age group, any age. If you're just living on your own, I think you were looking forward to coming to work and those social interactions because that was your place to interact. And suddenly that has been taken away. People who are used to watching, let's say, sports at their favorite local restaurant or bar and go down there. And so there are happiness aspects, and I also worry about that. And I'm working with my team very planfully to just see how do we inject encouragement and support throughout this cycle, so that, because this probably lasts into next year. I mean, this is not like we are going to come back to work next week or month. So we are in this for long haul, and we'll need lots of different techniques and tools in our armory before we get done with this.
One of the questions from the audience kind of takes from that, Seemantini, talking about the best collaboration that happens with proximity of coworkers, and the drop-bys are not occurring. So I believe, this is from Brett McWhirter, I believe that we are missing some of that creativity that is created in an office setting. He'd like to know your perspectives as CIOs, and I tag team it with what Seemantini was saying, both about the creativity. How do you make sure the creativity is happening in the processes when you're not having that momentary connection of collaboration and this mental health of our employees as well?
One of the things that maybe I can build on that, maybe provide some perspective. So, Fortive embraces what we call the Fortive business system. And it's a pretty disciplined, Kaizen-based process. And at the core of FBS is this in-person interaction where the problem or where the opportunity is. So we say go to Gimbal, which is go to the factory floor, or go to where you're actually trying to do the work. And that's supported by visual daily stand-ups with key metrics and displays of how you're performing across different functions. And I think this environment challenged our very core assumptions around, can you do that in a virtual way? And I've got to say, that pressure test, we feel like we've come out of it and have passed it. We've had to do some things differently, right? We had to learn how to use virtual whiteboards. We had to learn how to schedule daily stand-ups and be disciplined about everybody showing up to the stand-ups. We've gone back and forth about whether or not you require video on or video off in order to get the in-person experience, but you have to have those touch points in order to build that camaraderie around what you're trying to solve for. And when you look at the depth of process analysis or whatever there are tools out there that can be used in this virtual world. And I think the thing that we've learned most is the leaders need to be intentional about clarity of communication and structuring some of these ongoing touch points. And some of those is, how do you help enable employees through this process? And you've all may have done some version of, a virtual happy hour, an opportunity to get together where you're not talking work, but you're just getting to know each other and, watching the kids in the background, whatever the case may be. But that is about intentionality. And I think if we focus in that regard, you'll find that you'll reap the benefits, and you can take some of those traditional processes and actually bring them into the virtual world with some success.
I would like to build on that. I mean, that's such a true point. We absolutely worry about the burnout, and this technology absolutely allows you to go completely 24/7. Two things that NTT did is, from the top, we came out with this program where we basically said family is part of the team, which was really a way to sort of dial down any of the concerns that people had who were living in a very small space with a lot of potential distractions behind, and that it was okay. But then we went one step further with the technology, and we created this thing called NTT TV, which had nothing to do with business and everything to do about, social related topics, yoga, things that would be wouldn't have been possible, which were then opened up to a global audience and a global set of content providers to just bring communities together. So in a way, the technology allowed us to work hard, very hard, but it also opened up a lot more boundaries, or took a lot of boundaries down to get people to enjoy each other a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, all fantastic points, and I think we talked about some of the surprising things that have kind of come out of this or as a result of this, but I think one of the surprising things for me has been, I feel like I've actually gotten to know my coworkers and my clients, better than I did when we were in the office, because, you're seeing, and Tony, you're in your office or living room, like you're actually coming into people's homes and you're seeing their children and you're seeing them, with no makeup on and, hair a mess and coming from a workout or whatever it might be. And so, I really think that in some, crazy way, the technology is bringing this more of a truly human element to our work. And, I think that is something that was surprising to me, kind of going over through the last 3 months. So it's been, fantastic, I think, that element of it. Okay, so, another thing that, and, we talked kind of about the employee experience and productivity, and you guys mentioned just keeping a pulse right on our teams to make sure that there's not getting burnt out, because I think the reality of it is we're all probably playing 2 or 3 jobs right now, right? We're working, we're also teachers, some of us that have children. We're obviously staying home, so we're being homemakers. So we've got a lot that's kind of put on our shoulders at this point. Do you guys have any sort of advice that you would give to this group in terms of how to help manage that? And for example, our company has said kind of no meetings after 5 p.m. To help kind of balance that, all of the jobs that everybody kind of has these days.
Well, Melissa, hey, this is Steve. I would tell you, we haven't tried to put in any formal protocols like that, no meetings before 8 or no meetings after 5. We haven't done that. But I tell you, the tone we try to set across our executive leadership team, and then from my executive chair into my leaders, is to really be sensitive to what people are facing at home. I love Tony's comment, the family is part of the team as well. And you're spot on, Melissa. We get to come into your home now. We see, a little bit how you live, what's surrounding you, the things you like, the kids coming in, needing mom or dad's attention, the animal, the dogs barking in the back. Look, as leaders, we're just trying to be sensitive to that. And letting people take the space and the time they need when they need it. There've been plenty of meetings where somebody's, called in like 5 minutes before the meeting, said, hey, I just got an emergency, right? I've got to get lunch ready for the kids, or something happened and, the person who was going to take care of the kids can't make it. I'm going to have to do that. We're like, that's all fine. I think we're just trying to be even more sensitive to what people are going through in their personal lives as we come into your home and try to do work.
I think, in addition, what we have said is, in these times, being inclusive, kind, sensitive is really important. Steve, to your point, like, these things are going to happen. Like, kids are at home, somebody has to make their lunch. And so just being inclusive and sensitive about the needs that are arising due to these unprecedented times. The other things we said was also, take vacation, because we saw a phenomena where people were like, well, I'm not going anywhere. I can't travel anywhere. So I'm just not going to take my vacation. And then we started getting worried that may lead to burnout if people are not taking any vacation at all and working straight through all kinds of holidays and stuff. So we started encouraging, and we said, even if it is staycation, you're not going anywhere, it's still worth it to just take a little bit of a downtime, and openly talking about hobbies or what am I doing. Like when I get onto a town hall, I tell people as to what do I do for stress relief, what I started doing as a result of pandemic, some activities that I was not doing before. And so leadership openly talking about it and just saying, hey, these are the coping mechanisms, or this is what I'm doing. I think it just frees up the dialogue for others to express themselves. And that's what we have been doing.
Thank you, guys.
I would offer, Melissa, I know we all know this, but it's the little things that can make a difference. Just hearing Seemantini make her comments reminded me, look, to break up a little bit of monotony of our meetings all day, every day. We've had wear your favorite sports team jersey for a meeting. We'll have themes around that. We've had little contests within our team to actually have our kids color pictures around what it's like to be at home with mom and dad. And then we share those pictures with each other on our internal websites and with each other. It sounds silly, but just little things like that really go a long way. And I think Seemantini really hit it on the head the best. It's, being even more tolerant, even more patient, even more kind to everybody, knowing what we're all going through. So yeah, we try to break up the monotony a little bit. I'll tell you one last thing, on Teams, I know all you know this, you can customize your background.
Yeah.
And we've had little contests to see who can be the most creative with their team's background. And that, anything to spur competition gets everybody's juices flowing. So just thinking of little ways to break up the monotony and to put a smile on everybody's face while they're working. We've done some of those things.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so shifting now to kind of our, the customer side of things, because we've talked a lot about kind of the employee experience and productivity so far, but in addition to sort of the employee behavior that's changed so drastically, I mean, customer behavior has changed significantly overnight. So for those people that wanted to go in to a store and touch something and feel it before they and sometimes 2 or 3 times, right, before they actually made a purchase, has completely flipped now to, I'm not buying anything unless it is online and, is a contactless delivery, et cetera. So, in one of the trends that we have, it talks about how it's so important to understand customer behavior and interacting with customers the way that they, feel most appropriate to interact with your business. And that behavior has changed kind of significantly overnight. So how you thought one customer wanted to interact with your business, in March is completely different now, obviously. So how are you, shifting to support that change in behavior that, sort of shifted on a dime?
Yeah, I mean, I could go. I mean, here is the thing. I think it has been just a seismic change for our customers, for all customers of all industries. But I think retail mainly, I mean, again, I'll say Lowe is an essential retailer. We understand the critical role we are playing in the lives of our customers from a perspective of keeping their homes running and operating in a safe manner. But one of the things was, there are some customers who are very comfortable coming into our stores because the stores are quite large. There are lots of outdoor spaces in Lowe's, and I think that makes it easier. But there were customers, for really valid reasons, wanted different options. And so curbside is something that we rolled out really fast. I mean, literally over 2 weeks, just to make sure that, if you didn't feel like coming into the store, you could order online and just come and park your car in the designated parking spot. And with geofencing, with app enhancements, both on the associate side as well as the customer side, we were able to do a really nice launch. And I think that was really, I mean, as Lowe's as such a big retailer, we should just do that. And so we did that. The other thing is, on the other side of the coin, here is what has happened. There was a time, and there's still a time, when people are not feeling very comfortable letting a complete third party enter their house. And there was a time in between when people were very strict about it. So I have some work to be done, and I think I need an electrician to come in, but I'm really, you know, I have trouble doing that, let's say, as a customer. On the other side of the coin, there is the pro, whose livelihood is all about going into people's homes and fixing things, right? So this was a really big problem, and the team was thinking about how to solve it. And we came up with a tool, it's called Job Site for pros. And those of our pros who are signed on to our pro loyalty get that feature, which is literally like what we are doing right now on this Zoom meeting, is kind of having a call with your customer. But in addition to that, there is a lot of AR tools where you can go read the labels of products. Like if your dishwasher is broken, you could take this phone and go very close to the dishwasher, read the tag, the image processes all that, tells you exactly what make and model it is, what year the dishwasher was made. You know, you can circle areas on your phone, like you know, if you're watching NFL, sometimes they talk about the players, how the positioning, and the commentators draw circles on their screen, which everybody can see. You can do that in this product. So you could say, hey, this is the switch you need to reset, and this is the breaker, and see if it works and stuff like that. And so I think what we did was we let pros into the homes of their customers virtually. And maybe the 3 visits that they had to make got down to 1. The multiple touch points could be done through video, and do as much homework as possible through virtual environment. And then maybe the one last visit where it's absolutely critical for you because you're physically going and changing something, that's when the pros went inside the house. And I feel like that made everybody feel a little bit safer. So I think in the retail, we'll have to constantly think as to, hey, what is the next thing, and what do our customers expect, and continue to adopt in order to meet their needs.
Great. Does anybody else want to chime in on that one? I certainly have been a huge user of the drive-through pickups, you know, for all the retailers that have started to implement that. And I think what's interesting you said is, you know, we're a large retailer. We should just be doing that, right? So, you know, I think. Sorry, go ahead, Victor.
Well, I was going to build on it, and maybe just twist it a little bit. I think,
yeah,
you know, one of the things that Seemantini is pointing out is the buying patterns have changed, the employee interaction model has changed. And I think one thing that we're finding is a space for us to get deeper at process mining and understanding what's actually happening out there. And I think because those experiences have changed so fast, it requires us to take a double check and a second look at, is everything working the way it should be? And that could be everything from your sales funnel. Like we've just discovered opportunities in our own CRM and sales funnel that have been introduced because we're not physically going to meet with clients. We're doing it remotely, just like this. Or you may find disruptive experiences on your website. Or internally, you may find that, you know, given remote working, you now can automate processes where before the wide aperture lens of seeking those opportunities was never really brought to the surface. And so I think this change in customer experience, this change in work pattern, this change in employee expectations, I think as leaders, we have an opportunity to go back and put some tooling and some introspection on those tools to make sure that they are still working the way they should be in this new world, or that we're tuning them to the new world.
Yeah, thanks, Victor. And, you know, I think what'll be interesting to see too is what's here to stay. You know, out of all this innovation that's happened in the last 3 months to keep kind of business momentum moving forward, you know, is that truly here to stay? Am I going to be able to, you know, drive through and, you know, pick up goods at Lowe's the way that, you know, we've had to kind of adapt to what's here to stay and what may fall out, you know, as kind of the virus sort of flows through. Kim, I know you mentioned there was another question. Do we want to address that question before we wrap? I didn't look at
Sure.
the chat feature. So,
There's
okay.
a couple of them here.
Okay.
One was related to retention in your IT departments, and you know, how has that played out in this pandemic? You know, it was very competitive to get people to stay in jobs before. Is that still what you're seeing, or are they now moving swiftly and you're having even a harder time?
I might start. I'll offer. I haven't seen any significant change either in a positive or a negative direction on retention. We've tended still to see kind of a normal attrition, you know, as people find other opportunities, or, you know, this is the right time in their career or their life to make a change. I'd say that's still within the normal parameters, even probably a little less, to be honest about it. I wouldn't speculate on people's motivations, but, you know, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world. I think we're actually probably seeing a little bit less movement right now, at least within our own ranks. And I haven't seen anything, you know, that's alarming either way, you know, up or down in that regard.
You know, Steve, I think the one area where we're seeing opportunity is top talent that was previously uninterested in moving because of geographic location. And we've all proven now that we can work anywhere. And so that population that previously maybe wasn't interested in returning the phone call from the recruiter is now interested in returning the phone call from the recruiter because the subject of relocation is off the table. And so I think there's a top tier of talent that's available in the marketplace that before we would have all had trouble tapping because of geographic constraints, that's now available.
We're actually taking that on a global scale. So we're actually seeing a migration of work to lower cost locations. I mean, this COVID crisis has obviously caused all of us to think about our cost base. And so as we're bringing these 28 companies together, the innovation is on the edge, and that's a certain skill set, but a lot of the design and architecture work is being consolidated for us globally in certain parts of the world. And so this idea with using this technology is allowing us to make it even easier to acquire that talent. So I would agree.
You know, the numbers tell us that our attrition has dropped. Hiring has become easier, though it is still very competitive, but hiring has become easier because maybe there are not as many positions, you know, as they used to be before COVID. So I think we are finding attrition going lower, hiring going higher, which is, I mean, great direction. I think what I keep thinking about is maintaining or instilling just a phenomenal culture for the organization is tough to do if everybody is remote all the time for a really long time. I mean, I think about it all the time as to how do we instill culture. And it's easier for people who have been with the company for some time because they know what Lowe's is and they remember it and the memories are strong and they feel strong loyalty and feel strong sense of belonging. And I think that's great. But how do we keep it going? If this was to continue for for close to a year or so, if it continues, how do we do that is one thing I keep thinking about. The other thing I keep thinking about is people who join your company. I think we have to pay special attention to people who are new joinees because they don't have a physical space they are coming into. There are people who join Lowe's with a laptop being sent to them through mail and with welcome email and the whole setup and things like that. We did a really good job. But the fact is, there wasn't a buddy who was going for lunch with them on the first day. There wasn't a place we could show them or go for coffee. And like Kim, I think you were saying, the drive-bys and introductions that just happen while walking in the hallway, you suddenly get to know people. I mean, though I agree with everything that is being said about productivity, and I mean, we must work through this and we must find ways as leaders. I agree with all of that. But I think we also have to be strongly on our guard, because there are things that we really need to watch out for and just make sure that our teams and our people are making through it.
We've kind of come to the end of our time. So I wonder if we should make these a little longer next time. So I'd love if anybody sends us that information on their feedback. You will be seeing in the chat area a link, and we'll send that to you as well if you want to give some feedback. Whether longer would be better. We all get burned out on Zoom, so we don't want to overdo it, but I always feel like I want to ask more questions. And there is one more I want to ask you guys. It comes from a fellow CIO. And before I ask it, I want to tell everybody in the room that this time we're going to be breaking out into breakout rooms after the event. It's only 15 minutes, so you'll be able to have smaller conversations with people. And so we encourage you to stay afterwards and go to a breakout room, see how that goes, and give us feedback on that too. And the question is from your fellow CIO. If you had one thing to do over since March, if you had a mulligan, what would you do over? And that's thanks from Kevin O'Rourke.
Great question to end
I
the
thought
panel.
so. Couldn't let it go without asking it.
Yeah.
Anybody got a mulligan they want to share?
Yeah, I think for me, I would have liked to have had the foresight to help some of our operating companies accelerate their digital agenda sooner in the pandemic rather than later, particularly like their digital marketing, their sales, their outreach, those programs. I think we did it, but I think we did it with the lens of, you know, the pandemic was going to last, pick your period of time, 12 weeks or whatever it was. I think now recognizing that, you know, we're all in this for another year easy. There's probably more work I would have liked to do earlier to capitalize on some of those earlier gains. So that's probably the one that would come top of mind for me.
That's like an interview answer, Victor. It's like, you know, what's your weakness? My weakness is that I'm, you know, I'm really strong. Sometimes I'm too strong.
I tell you, Kim, I appreciate Kevin's question. Maybe I'm not thinking about it hard enough. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if there is anything I'd change. We've reacted quickly to it as an IT organization within Trane Technologies. I think our partners have reacted really quickly with us. You know, I said earlier, I think we've demonstrated we can move quickly to implement new technologies, to be innovative. Again, behind the scenes, a lot of you wouldn't know and shouldn't know, but we've done so much work to separate Ingersoll Rand away from Trane Technologies, to really think about Trane Technologies as a new startup, to think about that in a transformative way. I tell you, we have covered so much ground since, you know, the third quarter of last year, between all of that separation, transformation, and now deal with COVID and deal with, you know, try to be sensitive to people working from home. I don't know, maybe I'm being short-sighted, but I don't have one mulligan there. I think the teams responded so well. I couldn't be prouder of them, to be honest about it.
Yeah. You know, Steve, I think to your point, I don't think I have this one thing for the transformation or the speed of transformation, acceleration, productivity. I think to your point, yeah, I think we all seem to be, everybody in the audience, I think all of us are doing really good progress. I just keep thinking, are we underestimating? I mean, and that's the part of my personality, which is a little bit like, okay, what am I not thinking? And I just keep wondering if we are underestimating the impact of all this on social impact on our employees, overall duration. Like, you know, when this started, we said, yeah, this will be for 2-3 months. People will come back. It's just hang on. Now we are realizing, well, it's not 2-3 months. Then we were saying, well, of course, people are going to go back to school, and fall is going to be, and you know, we are here at the time of opening of schools, just a month away maybe, and it looks a little tenuous. And now we are thinking about, well, winter, is it going to be worse? So I just it keeps bugging me that are we are we really estimating the size of the problem accurately? More, not so much from a business perspective, but more from social, and how are our employees going to make through this whole thing? So, and maybe I'm overthinking this, but.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for these great insights. Thank you, Melissa, for running a wonderful discussion, and Accenture for being our wonderful partners for so many years, and for NTT sponsoring this entire series to make it possible. We're so grateful. This is actually March's panel. You